my channel where we question everything. Today's topic is the energy crisis in Europe and what influence will it have on the German and the European economy. Now, there have been various statements made by various punters, if you call it, and analysts about the imminent collapse of the German economy due to the fact that they have high energy prices, and that the high energy prices are driven by the lack of or the shortage of gas, especially the German government, who wanted to reduce the supply of Russian gas, of which they were supposed to be dependent, and the oil embargo, so forth and so forth, and that this energy crisis, or this gas shortage, rather, will lead to the imminent collapse of the German economy. And since we had this recent sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines, there has become a position of no return. Now, I've argued in many of my previous videos that the world cannot be described in simple terms, and neither can it be analyzed by trying to simplify everything. The world is a complex environment with multiple factors that can influence any outcome, and it makes it highly unpredictable. Now, I just want to put something into perspective on what is usually meant by a collapse, or what one believes is a collapse, and that's usually a huge depression. Now, just as a little bit of background, there was the forgotten depression in America in 1920-21, where unemployment apparently rose to just over 12%. And then we had the big depression, which you all should be aware of 1929 till 1939, where the unemployment rate has more or less just went about 20%. Now that sounds terrible, and I totally agree with that. But it still means that 80% of the people worked, 80% of industrial worked, and there was still commercial activity being conducted. Yes, it was hard times. Yes, I have sympathy with the people that suffered. But unfortunately, it wasn't an apocalypse. It was a catastrophic event, but not an apocalypse. And the way that most of these people are actually describing, and me included, was the firm belief that there will be like a seriously collapse of the German economy. And if Germany collapses, who's the main pin around where Europe economy is dependent on, then that will also affect severely the European economies. So I'm saying I'm not innocent, but what I did is I stood back and had a better look at the different factors and what is the real situation. Now, one has to really look at, well, the biggest problem at this stage is, well, I'm going to talk about the other item, but the main narrative basically runs around energy and the high energy cost and the shortage of gas, and the Germans can't heat themselves, and that is going to be catastrophic. But that's not totally true. So we have, in Germany, we have, 23% of the gas, well, the gas actually composes about 23.8% of the energy consumption of Germany. And about 38% of the gas is used in heating. That still means that 62% of the heating is conducted by electricity. And they still have gas, and they still will have gas, although in much reduced quantities. And there is a big chance that they will run out of gas. But it doesn't mean they will run out of energy. And that's a huge difference. What has really happened? Well, we're going to first look at where does Germany's energy come from. And here we have a nice bar chart. And you will notice that the biggest portion is done by renewable energy, which is about 46.5%. Another big chunk is produced by lignite and hard coal, which are both coal varieties. And the one is about 90%, the other one is 10%, so we have about, call it a 30% production of electricity by coal-fired power stations. And then we have about 6%, or 5.6%, produced by nuclear power. And yes, they want to shut down the remaining nuclear power, but there is some serious talk that they're going to keep 2 of them on standby. So they don't really have to run them, but if they run out of gas, they will use them and they will generate electricity. And then you will find that only 14% of the electrical energy is produced by gas. So it's not really a significant part. Well, it is big, but not that big. Man cannot cope with that. And then one has to look at how the German electrical costs are determined. And there's about, 8 factors that do influence it. The one is the surcharge, the EEG surcharge, that finances the expansion of renewables. Then we have the CASF surcharge, which is the Combined Heat and Power Act, which means that if power plants can convert energy of heat and power into electricity, then they should benefit. So it's a incentive for these types of industries. Then you have a surcharge under Section 19, where the final consumer can pay a grid where the electricity is transported on its own. Then there's an offshore surge under Section 17, which means that that's the financing of offshore wind powers and whatever other offshore energy devices can be done. And then we have under Section 18, the Ordinance on Interruptible Loads, which means that the system has to have some backup for renewables when the renewables don't supply enough energy. And then you have a concession fee, which basically shows you, what the energy provider has to pay municipalities in order to use the infrastructure. And then we have electricity tax, which is used to fund renewables and the green climate change and the green power generation. And then finally, we have value-added tax at 19%, quite large. So when you all add them together, you will find about that each kilowatt has a surcharge of about 9.4 cents per kilowatt. And then if you look at the current electricity price, which is 51.38 cents per kilowatt, then the VAT portion comes to about 9.76. So in total, we are talking about 19 to 20 cents per kilowatt of additional charges, which is not dependent on the source, the energy source. And then the Germans pay a basic fee of 8.8 euros for the supply of the electricity. And then, as I've stated, 51 plus cents per kilowatt. Now, this number has more or less doubled since the beginning of the year. And they are estimating that its value will increase again. So if you stand back and you look at these factors, you will notice that, then you have to ask yourself, what is the real problem? And the real problem is not really the gas. It's the energy price. And the energy price, which I have stated before, is the lifeblood of any economy. So if the energy price goes too high, then the economy will either become uncompetitive, or they will become uncompetitive, and then they will have to close and shut down, which is currently happening, and which is being warned by various economists and actors. And it's a true event. But one has to look a little bit deeper, and you will find that it is not the gas per se that causes this rise in energy. It is the indirect consequence, or the indirect influence the gas has on energy prices and the way that it's being set up. Now, all these things are, the electricity price is market driven, supply and demand, and the market value also considers as a baseline the cost of production of the highest producer, which in this case is gas. So if you generate, say, electricity with gas, then the cost of that electricity is used as a base market. Now you will understand that with renewables, cost of production hasn't increased. The coal-based things has increased, but not that much. Then the nuclear things is not really a factor. So all these other sectors, or all these other energy producers of energy, which use different source material, are benefiting hugely and having huge profit margin. And what the German government has already indicated is that they're going to split or control this extra unwarranted profit margins of these companies, and then use that to subsidize the people, which is the correct way actually of doing it. I totally agree with that. And also, there's a little bit, again, standing back and looking at the electricity grid. And please remember, I'm not a specialist on these things, and I can only look at certain events and have a conclusion about that. But then one also has to ask yourself whether the experts really look at all the factors and have a complete picture. So Germany, per se, is a country in Europe that if the renewable energy doesn't always work, they can always obtain energy from France. So there's a connection between those two. Unfortunately, approximately half of French nuclear power stations are out of action for maintenance or for some other technical reasons. So there's a shortage of energy so that backup system doesn't really work. Well, France has indicated they will be ready or have restored most of the power plants by winter. So let's see what will happen. But it's a very convenient it's a weird type of situation where 50% of the French power stations are out of action. One has to question what is really going on there. And then also on the other side is that Austria generates most of the electricity by hydropower. Now it was summer, and then they have a shortage of hydropower due to water levels. And then they have to import again energy from Germany. So as you can see, they are all interconnected. The various countries are trying to support them, and if this guy goes low, then this one supplies, and then turn around and stuff like that. So it's not as easy and as simple as people try to make it. So is the gas shortage going to have such an influence? Yes. But it's not the only thing. And the only reason why it will have an influence is by its direct impact on the energy cost. And as I have explained in the previous video, there is a theory that the money people would like to manipulate the energy prices by the spot pricing of gas. And if they control the spot prices of gas, then as I've explained, it influences all the other energy producers as well. It produces, they can manipulate LNG's pricing, and it's a control of the economy. And they can make lots of money by it. That's fine. But then one has to stand back again. And like I said, there are numerous factors that can influence any economy. And what has happened in the last couple of years? So we had, during the COVID pandemic, the governments printed a lot of money. Now, if you print money, you cause inflation and devalue your currency. And what they've also done is they have done quantitative easing since 2008, which also printed money and put the money into the industry, and thereby diluting or expanding the money supply, and thereby trying to cause inflation. And they couldn't get it right, but hey, finally it went with the COVID. So now we have a nice runaway inflation, and these idiots still think it's only transitionally and it's only going to be small, and by next year the inflation will subside. And I have to inform them, sorry, it's not going to happen. This inflation is here to stay, and it will get worse. Because it's been exploited. There are multiple factors that can exploit the whole situation. So to what degree, we will see. But since you could have controlled everything until January, but with the multipolar world, the game has changed. Nothing is certain anymore, and one has to go and see. But what did inflation really do? Yes, it was always the run again on the stupid run on the dollar, being the safe haven, which is like a fallacy. It's like the sheep always doing the same thing and then don't see all the problems. That the American economy is just as bad, in a bad position, still has the same inflation problems. So that's not going to change. So why the people are running to the dollar is probably, I don't know, they have too much dollar, or the interest rate in America is still way, way lower than the inflation rate. So they have a negative interest rate, because inflation is higher than the interest rate. So they make a loss if they invest in bonds and so on. But what has happened is that the euro has fallen. Now the general consensus is that energy prices has risen, and therefore the input cost of German industry has gone up. And if that happens, then the final product or price of their product would have risen, and they would have become uncompetitive. And that's why we all are, not all, I'm distancing myself from that. Having a narrative of there's going to be a crash in the German economy. But Germany doesn't produce everything in Germany. They do produce a lot of stuff in China, in the East, and other countries. So they have exported some of their manufacturing. So that part will not be effective, and it will still be part of the German GDP. But since the euro has fallen against in its value against the dollar and international currencies, the German products have become cheaper to export. So that is like a balancing act between the high energy costs and the lower value of the currency, and hopefully that makes up for the increase in costs, and so the prices won't be run away out of the market, and the Germans can still export some of their products. Now, these are only a few of the factors that influence our matter. To see the real picture, I don't see there's anybody on earth that can consider all the factors. So what I'm trying to say is that nothing is as simple as people try to present or to state. It is a complex situation. Now, yes, we had the Nord Stream gas explosion. No, that's about people. Can it be repaired? Yes, it can be repaired. Will it be repaired? I don't know. Depends on how they want. If they want it seriously enough, they can do it, but I don't see at this stage they're going to be serious enough. Can Germany do something else with its energy crisis? Yes, they can do it. They just have to go back on their initial plans, which is the green energy. And the Green Party, who is the most vocal, will probably have to give in, which they have already done. And they restarted the coal-fired power plants. And that can make up for the shortfall. And what they really have to do is decouple the electricity price or the energy price from this ridiculous, unbalanced, unfair type of price fixing for energy. And if they've done that, they have solved most of their problems. Well, at least a big part. Will the German economy suffer? Yes, it will suffer. Will it contract? Yes, it will contract. How much? I don't know. Will people become unemployed? Yes, they will become employed. Will people suffer? Yes, they will be. Will it be Armageddon? Definitely not. The world doesn't, I have a saying that says, don't worry, the world is not ending tomorrow. Doesn't matter what happened today. Tomorrow, the world is still turning around its axis, going around the sun. And if you are waking up and you haven't died for some other stupid reason, then your life will also go on. And in spite of all the hardship. And because the human race indicates resilience, you will make an effort to survive and you will make a plan, just like people did in the world wars. There was no money, no work, but they still survived. They still exchanged, did some small jobs, exchanged assets, or whatever the way they tried, but they all survived. And this is the same going to happen. Is it going to be hard? Yes, it's going to be hard. Is it going to be, in Afrikaans, lekker? No, and it won't be nice. But life goes on. So think about what people are really saying. There will be hardship, there will be consequences, but it's not as catastrophic as what people try to make. And think, and then ask the questions, because that's the only way you can get behind the truth. Well, that's it for today. If you like what I said, please press the like button. If not, dislike button. And if you want to listen more, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, cheers.